This is the BBC.
This podcast is supported by advertising outside the UK.
Everyone likes shopping online, but searching for coupon codes is kind of a bummer. So make saving online a breeze with Capital One Shopping. Capital One Shopping is a free tool that instantly searches for available coupon codes and automatically applies them at checkout. Just download Capital One Shopping to your computer and let it do the work for you. So easy, and you don't even need a Capital One card to use it. Capital One Shopping. It's kind of genius. What's in your wallet? Savings and available coupons vary.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Language warning. Guys, we get pretty candid at times in this podcast, so expect some strong and colourful language and some themes of an adult nature.
Sex education when I was at school was about a penis going into a vagina and preventing pregnancy.
Putting a condom on a banana.
Yeah.
That's why I don't like bananas.
That's why I like bananas.
Yeah, same. Triggered.
Welcome to Building Queertopia. I'm Chelsea Grimes.
And I am Shane Janik. This is the podcast where, with the help of some incredible guests, we'll create a queer utopia where everyone is welcome.
A place where everybody is safe and free to live truthfully.
Definitely love men, but every now and then, you know, usually there's a man involved.
Like, oh my God, like such a lesbian. I want to go now.
Yeah, let's go.
Welcome to Building Queertopia.
This is the podcast where we explore the concept of a society in which we, the queer community, will be free from discrimination.
Free from the constraints of heteronormativity. Each week we ask a different guest for ideas to make this fictional world a true utopia, and we have had some amazing ones so far.
We have, like, abolishing the gender binary and gender expectations, or creating fast lanes for queer pedestrians. No idea is too silly or serious.
As long as it's about improving daily life for us all, anything goes. Hey, Chelsea, we're recording this podcast on, like, opposite sides of the world, but it doesn't actually feel like it.
Yeah, I think it's maybe because we're just together in spirit in this fictional paradise we're creating, so it's fine.
I like that. It's like a long-distance relationship.
Yeah, it is. And, you know, me being a lesbian, that's pretty normal, I think. I mean, gosh, I genuinely have dated every corner of the globe apart from Liverpool. I've never dated a girl from Liverpool. I think that's where I might be going wrong. Yeah, honestly. It's crazy because when I come out, I moved to London when I was like 21. So I had a boyfriend from when I was like 17 to like 19. Then I slept with a girl, but it was hush hush. And I was like, I'm not gay. And then kind of tried to date this guy again who was really great for me. Everyone told me he'd treat me amazing. He was gorgeous. We had loads in common, but he has a willy and I just weren't feeling it.
Turns out you're a lesbian.
Then I was like, that means I'm gay. And then when I moved to London, yeah, I just like dated girls from everywhere. Like I've literally, I dated, my first girlfriend was from Miami. Then I dated a girl from Amsterdam. Then I dated a Spanish girl. Then I dated, well, I just recently done Scotland. That sounds terrible. But I mean, I dated someone from Scotland and someone from Ireland. So I've literally, I mean.
Have you ever dated somebody in the same city? Like when you're in London, did you date someone who lived there?
Yeah. Pretty much all of them lived there. They were just from different countries. Gotcha. But yeah, I did have a girlfriend while I was in London too. I had three girlfriends in London. I was, all at the same time. No, I was there for like 7 years, but I had like 3 main relationships in them 7 years, and they were all in London. But it is so normal for lesbians. to date long distance. That's why they say, lesbian second date, you're practically deciding if you're moving in together or not. How's this going to work? What about like gay men? Do you date long distance or is that just not going to happen?
Well, my lifestyle might be a bit different to most because, apart from the pandemic, I'm a traveling showgirl. Yes. So I'm never really in one place that long. So I kind of have what I call my regional boyfriends. Mm-hmm. And so like it depends on the time. Okay, so what have I got now? What's on the what plates are spinning? I'm trying to think.
What area codes have we got going on?
Yeah, I'm trying to think I've definitely had and it's not even like boys in ports, like in a slutty way. I maintain like communication with different people around the world. And it's kind of sweet. Like there's a guy who's in like Cincinnati, Ohio. There's even I'm one of these people who like I could not everybody that I've slept with once because who's got the time? But but like there's like a guy in like Knoxville, Tennessee, who I met. I was in drag. It's like this. It's called the Cookout. It's like a fast food joint. It was like the drive-through. Anyway, met this guy, had a lovely time, kept in contact with him for years. Only seen him once. When it was time to vote, I was like, you live in a red state. I'm going to call and make sure that you're registered to vote because it's important. And so I went through my phone book and I looked up all of the people that I knew who lived in like red states in America.
Wow.
But I've got like, talk
about using your power for the good. That is incredible, Shane. I love that. I'm going to go through my phone book and see all the guys I know and make sure that they're voting. Love that for you.
Well, because like all of the people that I know in my immediate circle were all registered to vote. They were all on the same thing. I'm like, I need to get outside my echo chamber. How do I do that? And I was like, men in the South.
Like English guys or American guys or Australian guys, are they all different or
they're all let me think now. I don't know if I have a preference. No. I think they all have different like qualities. I've dated Australian guys. My first serious boyfriend was Canadian. He was delightful. I've dated kind of like lots of different like cultures, ethnicities, countries, and I think everyone's kind of I think I like dating diverse because you have like different experiences and different understandings and just hearing about like people's families. I mean, living in the US was cool for like 10 years and just all of the like these things that we've grown up with watching on television, like all of these stories and all these sitcoms and things, and you think you know it, and then you date someone who like grew up in Florida or who grew up in the Midwest or who grew up in the South, and just hearing stories about, their family and stuff, it makes it so much more real.
I'm going to end this chat now then of me just like visualizing me wish for today is like meeting a girl from Liverpool and just not having to travel miles and spend thousands to go and see someone, which potentially ends terribly. So give me a second.
Okay, I'm going to visualize it for you too.
Thank you. Come on.
Do you have a type?
Yeah, fit.
Fit. Looking for a fit bird in Liverpool to get some fish and chips. No, fuck. How do you do it?
That's not that bad, to be fair. I just say fish and chips.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's chicken. That's the one.
Chicken. Chicken. It's got a...
Amazing. Our guest today is Canadian British drag queen and one of the stars of the very first season of UK Drag Race.
They're also no stranger to conversation about queer identity as they host another brilliant podcast, The Things That Made Me Queer. Crystal, welcome to Queertopia.
Thank you so much. Ooh, it's so queer in here.
I feel like we have a sort of similar origin story in a way, that we're both like from other Commonwealth nations. We came to another nation and we were both on RuPaul's Drag Race.
And we're both natural blondes.
Exactly. Well, Well, I was born a blonde. It definitely requires some bleach these days.
No, it's so true. Yeah, and I don't know if it was the same. We're probably not supposed to talk about Drag Race too much, but I found it a little bit weird being on a reality show celebrating the UK drag scene as a foreigner. And especially on season 1 where I was like, I don't belong here, but I'm happy to have the opportunity.
Yeah.
First up, Crystal.
Pearls of wisdom.
Yes, the only thing missing is a pearl necklace.
Aw, shucks!
Crystal is an East London party girl. She's been out all weekend, and she still looks great.
That's one bender I want to go on.
On my head, I'm wearing 10 kilos of pearls, and the swish is amazing. The gloves are completely hand appliqued. It's where kitsch meets fashion. It's totally East London.
She's giving me the bitch from Shoreditch.
How did you get on the show?
I applied. Yeah. Sent in a tape. They picked me. Yeah. It was great.
Yeah, same. I was living in the US. I was like, well, I'm going to apply.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I'll be America's next Australian drag superstar.
Exactly.
And you just think like from there, you're like, oh, they're probably not going to crown
No.
a Canadian as the UK's first drag superstar.
Absolutely not. There was no chance. I mean, I do have a British passport, and I had lived in the UK for 9 years at that point, and I started drag here. So, like, my drag is British born.
Yes.
Just that accent, it gives you away.
I know. And I've got a weird accent now for sure. It's like definitely somewhere in the middle of the Atlantic.
Can you do a good British accent?
No.
Fair enough. The thing about Drag Race for me, like I didn't really watch the first few seasons. Like everyone is obsessed with it. But I remember I went to LA and I was trying to find a
Is this another story
bar.
about the Abbey?
No, it's not. Actually, it's not. But I was trying to find a sports bar for a game, and I found a sports bar, went in, and it was, they put the TV on. I was like, yes, here we go. And it was the RuPaul Drag Race, the final, and everyone like put, and I was like, oh no.
Gay sports.
Yeah,
Gay
it was,
sports.
and yeah, my life changed. Then I was a fan.
What a way to discover it, at accidentally
In a
stumbling into the
sports bar.
final, like in public with loads of gays around.
But it was kind of like watching a game, because when someone would do something great or something, it'd be like, "Way!" Boom. Like everyone was, and I was like, this is literally, it's a sporting event for me. Listen, I think we should just get into it.
Great.
Anyway, okay. So this is the first question we ask every new citizen at Queertopia. What is your big idea for making this new society a true paradise for the queer community?
So I loved this question, and I had a few different thoughts. One of the thoughts I had was about just abolishing gender roles for children and stopping things like gender reveal parties and things like that, just getting rid of it. But that isn't my experience particularly, so I didn't think it was right for me to kind of talk about that too much. What I thought I would have loved as a child, and I think is still really lacking, is sex education in schools, and like the destigmatization of sex, and like an understanding of sex for pleasure. I don't know, I'm sure it was probably the same for you guys, but sex education when I was at school was about a penis going into a vagina and preventing pregnancy.
Putting a condom on a banana.
Yeah.
That's why I don't like bananas.
That's why I like bananas.
Yeah, same. Triggered. So I don't know. Most gay people learn about sex from porn, and I just think it's an absolute tragedy. I was talking to my husband about that this morning. Like, what was it like here in the UK? And he was like, I think we had a traveling theater group come in and talk about putting condoms on.
Yeah,
and
on
like,
a banana.
Yeah, so just like farm it out to someone else. Like, let them do the awkward stuff. I get that it's not comfortable, but it's just something that's so lacking. And
it's so true. Like, I never got taught anything. I think it was just one of those embarrassing things. I think American Pie or something, he uses like an apple pie and puts his fingers in it or something.
He put his dick in it.
Yeah, he did do that. But like, there's nothing in school. It was literally just, this is how you get pregnant, so don't do this.
I remember getting to Sydney when I was 18 years old. I it was like my second night. I moved really fast. Like my first night I kissed my first boy, was like, oh my God, I didn't know this was possible. Slept with a different boy on my friend's bedroom floor while her and her boyfriend were asleep in the bed.
Wow.
And the next night I was like, I need more of that. Like I'd been denied this like experience the last 18 years. And long story short, I went to insert another gentleman's penis into my anus, and he was like, what are you doing? And I was like, what? I just thought that's what you did. And he's like, not without a condom. And I'm like, I'm not going to get pregnant. And he was like, oh my God, how old are you? And I was like, 18. And long story short, a sort of guardian angel cocktail waiter, after pouring a bucket of iced water over the cubicle stall that we were in, dragged me by the scruff of the neck, sat me down on Taylor Square and gave me a safe sex talking to. And I was like, no, you don't understand. No one's going to get pregnant. Therefore, we don't need to wear condoms. And that was literally the breadth of my understanding. And then he gave me this big long chat about safer sex. And I was like,
wow,
I had no idea. And in that 20 minutes, that one sort of thoughtful cocktail waiter taught me more about the birds and the birds than, any high school sex education.
What a guy.
Yeah.
I love him for that.
Yeah.
We need more of those. Yeah, I think, all my friends as well at the time, I went to an all-girls Catholic school.
Oh, gosh.
I know. I was in my element. But, like, they were all straight, well, at the time. Wow. And, they would just talk about, like, the pull-out technique. I was just
because it's Catholic. They don't even believe in condoms. Oh, my God.
Like, they were literally like, it was just crazy. And I just didn't obviously want to be doing that. I was just thinking, like, how do I make a girl feel good? Or, like, I had no idea. And I was too young, I felt like, to talk to my parents about it. So I just wouldn't dare. So it was about, like, maybe using the internet more than I should have. But hopefully, like you said, in Queertopia, that's going to be a thing. We're going to make that happen in schools, aren't we?
And just giving kids the option to consider, because, I don't know, I probably hadn't figured out where I stood on all of that by the time someone was putting a condom on a banana in front of me in school. I didn't know if that was something that was going to be in my future or not. But if someone had presented a few different options, it just would have made things a lot more comfortable.
Yeah.
Like I learned, like queer people, or say gay men, learn about, penis vaginal intercourse, and it doesn't make them rush out and try it. So the idea that, like, teaching straight people about, penis in anus, well, I mean, that can also be straight as well, because women have anuses. Most mammals do. Except
Typically.
for, I think, the monotremes. I think they have one hole that is for pooping and peeing. But
Monotreme?
digress. Yeah, they're mammals that lay eggs. The echidna and the platypus. Australian. They only have one hole.
One hole?
Yeah.
One hole. My favourite animal thing is the seahorse male has the children.
Yeah, and they can change gender.
Yeah. Unreal.
If they're in, like, a big school of men, then one will be like, all right, and then switch
I'm up.
gender.
It's me.
Yeah. I empathise with that.
A true switch.
I feel that. A true switch, yeah. What was I going to say? What was I talking about before I started talking about anuses?
Oh, yeah. Women have them too.
But, like, but teaching straight people about queer sex doesn't mean that all of a sudden, like, all of these straight people are going to become queer. And I think that's like maybe the misconception that somehow educating people about things other than their own experience is either a waste of time or useless or dangerous. And it's like, no, it just means that we get to understand. Like, I bought this book about, I can't remember what it's called, but it's like something about vaginas, like relearning vaginas. Because I was like, a few years ago, realized that I was just calling the whole thing a vagina. Mm-hmm. And someone corrected me and was like, well, actually, that's the vulva. The vagina is actually just the hole. And I was like, oh, my God. And so I bought this book about vaginas. I don't have a vagina. Not often do I have experience. It
hasn't turned you into a vagina?
It hasn't turned me into a vagina.
I mean, I feel like you've got a little vulva growth.
I can be a little bit like...
No, but it's like, it's the same. It's true, imagine. For me... wanting to have sexual experiences with women back then, I thought, I can't get pregnant then, and there's no chance of me getting like an STI or whatever because, there's no penis involved. But then sex toys becomes the conversation, and I've probably learnt more through like the girls that I've dated or something, like, to be honest, than school.
Yeah,
Which is kind of a dangerous place to learn about stuff.
Definitely. You've got to get lucky and find good partners that are up for educating you. And yeah, it's not a way to go to make your way through the world. It's dangerous, it's unsafe, it's harmful, all of that.
So in schools, like, do you picture, perhaps it is that like performance troupe, because I just feel like entrusting that to some like crusty old teacher is wrought with danger. But some performance troupe that travels around the UK, school to school.
Plus the gays will eat that up.
Yeah.
Yeah,
or even when we get celebrities in schools every week, like Little Nas can come in and do one, and then we can Christine the Queen's come do
maybe
one.
I'm not dreaming big enough. Okay, so gay icons come in and perform gay sex acts for you.
That could be crossing the line. I feel like
you can make a song.
Sorry, you said Little Nas X. I got carried away.
Same. Well, the other thing to consider is that we don't have exact statistics of how many people are queer, but we use the rough 10%. But we do know in a recent YouGov survey, I think it was 28% of people between the ages of, I'm really digging around in a box in my brain for some specific figures. In their 20s, about 28% of people had a same-sex experience. Now, that's a lot more than just the L's, the G's, and the B's. And that means that there are a lot of people who ultimately identify as straight who are having same-sex experiences. So that education is even more important for them because they're not interacting in a queer scene where they are possibly having partners who are experienced. It might be sex on the DL. It might be also, I have sex with lots of my male sex partners, men on the DL, and I actually sit there and chat to them afterwards. But that sort of after you get through that awkward 30 seconds when a man has ejaculated and he's not thinking about sex, and then he's like,
oh God, how do I reframe this?
And then I just talk until their brain comes around, and then we sit there and talk about identity and sexuality and sex and safer sex and all of this sort of stuff. And I think it's my weird kink. I think I just have sex so that I can engage them in deep and meaningful conversation afterwards. With gay men, it's so that I can spoon afterwards. With straight identifying men, it's so I can talk about their identity
just
and unpack
hand on head on the pillow, just staring at them what is your brain like?
Yeah. Secretly recording a podcast. Taxi cab confession.
This is going to be great fodder.
Yeah.
Hi, it's Cheryl, and I'm going decades deep into the sound of R&B.
You, me, and R&B.
From teenage heartthrobs to girl groups who inspired me in my own career. You can think of this series as my love letter to the greatest music genre there's ever been.
Me and R&B with Cheryl. Listen only on the BBC Sounds app. Search for Cheryl.
Crystal, you're allowed one piece of art, literature, TV or film to bring to Queertopia. What is going in your suitcase?
Ooh, I was going to say Showgirls just because it's essential queer viewing, but it's not really a queer film. It's actually a little bit problematic. So I said the series Tales of the City.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
The books.
Yes. Yeah.
Love
not
that.
the new series.
Not the
I haven't actually seen the old series, but the books. The books are amazing. I love the books because I think they present a world of Queertopia because they were written based in San Francisco in a time before HIV/AIDS, when there was just optimism, possibility, hope, and they're so camp, they're so subversive, they're so unabashedly sexual, and
I've not read these or know anything about. Tell me.
They're amazing. They're super soapy and cheesy and trashy, but they deal with queer issues in this really frank way, and it's almost feels like it's written in a modern time because it's so unabashedly queer, and I think everything took a backseat for such a long time, and rights got reversed actually for a long time, and the conversation got sidelined for such a long time that it almost feels modern in a way when you read them.
Yeah, because it was written in the 70s, wasn't it? The first ones.
Yeah, they were originally published in a newspaper. They were short stories, and I think they got anthologized into books. Wow. But I think he was writing them in the paper, Armistead Maupin, who wrote them. I think it was like a decade of stories in the newspaper every week, and then eventually they got combined into books.
Wow.
They're so great.
And it's all sort of set around not an apartment complex, but sort of like a
big old townhouse,
yeah, big old townhouse that's owned and
in San Francisco.
In San Francisco on Barbary Lane.
Mm-hmm.
When did you read them, Courtney?
I actually have only read a bit of the first one, and then I cheated and watched the TV series.
Oh.
And I think that the 90s, was it in the 90s, that TV series? Yeah, I think that one's supposed to be quite good.
Yeah, and then there's a more modern remake on Netflix, which was the first thing that I watched, and I still quite enjoyed it, despite some dated casting styles and things like that. But because in the original, oh gosh, what is her name? The actress that plays...
she's in the remake
original.
too.
Yeah.
When did you first read it though, Crystal? Or get
probably
knowledge of it?
like 7 or 8 years ago.
Okay.
So like into my adulthood, but I'd say they're adult books because they deal with like pretty graphic sex stuff and yeah, they're a full queer experience, and they are really trashy. There's like murder mysteries, and there's cults, and there's maybe the handling of trans issues isn't particularly great. It's like a bit of a gotcha moment. Someone is revealed to be trans. Oh my god! But I think that they really do paint a picture of like a time when I think there was a lot of optimism about queerness, and it seemed like everything was only just going up and up and improving, and that's what I think Queertopia should be all about.
Well, we've got a lovely bookcase here. So
yeah, we'll put Tales of the City in there.
It's going in there. Okay, well, we ask guests too about statues. You know, who are you paying tribute to with a statue in Queertopia?
That has to be Madonna on a swan from the Express Yourself video.
Obviously.
We love that.
Oh, I mean, that is one of my earliest queer awakening moments. I think it was a Madonna-thon on MTV, and just seeing Madonna on that swan, I don't know how old I was, 5, something like that, and being like, who is this? What is going on? And then the next shot is all of these gorgeous men working out in the rain.
Yeah.
Like, it was mind-blowing, that music video for me. And I mean, come on, girls, do you believe in love? That can be the inscription on the statue. It's just...
That's amazing. Literally, that's amazing. Is Madonna for you, like, your all-time favourite?
Yeah, I mean, she was definitely, like, a role model for me of living unapologetically. And she did it all, and she was one of the first to do it in this amazing way. That her unabashed sexuality was just super, super inspiring. And like, I think she really, really, really broke the mold. And I'm not going to go into a Madonna tangent, but like, we all know why she's great.
Well, you know what? It's interesting that you say that. I don't think we all do know why she's great, because I talk to a lot of young people who don't understand or don't remember, weren't alive for 90s Madonna, where she really not only forged a path in pop culture, but also led with a queer narrative. She centered, I mean, look, we look back retrospectively and we can say all sorts of things, but at the time, in the 90s, like her In Bed with Madonna or Truth or Dare, depending on your continent, documentary, talked about queer themes and gay men and sexuality in a way that no other pop star was at the time. And she sort of began that in the 90s, and then it kind of died off a bit, and then I think Gaga came back with that narrative.
It is just about a generational thing. I was born in 92, so I wasn't really aware of Madonna. Where as soon as Lady Gaga came out when I was like 16, 17, I was like, oh my God, someone who like is here for the community. And and my mum was like, yeah, she's just like Madonna, basically. But I was like, attacked. But yeah, I think it's just a generational thing. And like now even, you know, like we're saying, back in the 90s, Madonna was like the only one. And then even when I was 16, 17, Gaga was the only one. And now we look at the charts and we've got like Lil Nas and Sam Smith. And there's just like so many, gay queer artists. And it's just amazing.
Yeah. And she was such an activist for queer voices. And she was very political about HIV and AIDS and ACT UP, involved in all of those movements, which was amazing. But she was also just a really great visual artist. And the real reason I think queer people should care about Madonna is they should just go look at her music videos from the 90s.
And her music as well. I mean, bop, bop, bop.
Yeah.
Even if I was responsible even if I did experience all those things, people thought that I was into S&M, that I liked to sleep with women, that I did this, that I did that. Who cares? It doesn't matter. That's irrelevant. I'm still a good person. And what I'm saying is, it doesn't matter what a person's sexual preference is. Right. You know, as long as you're not hurting anybody, there's nothing wrong with anything that anybody does. And I am saying, so what?
All right. Well, we're also taking suggestions for national anthems. Anything Madonna, or what do you think it should be?
My national anthem would be Peaches' Fuck the Pain Away.
Why is this?
I mean, what a song. What an artist. Peaches, takes what Madonna did and then dials it to 1 billion. She's, the most sex-positive artist I can think of. And, that song is just so in your face, rude, but it's got such a banging beat.
Is there anything deep we can derive from Fucking the Pain Away, or is it just a bop?
Anything deep? Yeah, I think it's about using sex as a tool of liberation, definitely for femme presenting people who have been denied potentially sexual pleasure as a culture, and it's. Yeah, there is something incredibly powerful about saying I'm not going to be ashamed of my sex, of the sex that I'm having. And that's Peach's whole MO. And I think that should be the backbone of any queertopia as well.
Preach.
I can see it already. Walking in, there's Madonna. Also, how big is Madonna in the statue form? Is she life size, or is she going to be?
Well, the swan is the size of a house, and then we can decide whether or not Madonna is going to be to scale or not.
Okay, yeah, there we go. And then Peaches is blasting through the radio, or any big sporting event that we hold. All the players are just singing it with the chest. Okay, amazing.
But yeah, if anyone listening, if you don't know the work of Peaches, you're in for a treat.
And what about buildings? What do you want to, you can create a building you want, or you can bring one that already exists to Queertopia. What are you doing?
So I think that has to be Bethnal Green Working Men's Club, which is an iconic East London venue, which is where I got my start in drag. And it's a wonderful place because it is a real melting pot of East London. So I remember the first time going there, it was to Sink the Pink, which is a really fun club night in London. And they used to be based out of Bethnal Green Working Men's Club. And they would use the upstairs, and then the downstairs was still being run as a working men's club. And so if you went the wrong way going to the toilet, you would just stumble into an old-fashioned boozer full of East End geezers having pints. And you'd be there in a bodysuit covered in glitter, whatever it was. And they just wouldn't bat an eye. And it was this amazing mix where two scenes that you normally think wouldn't get along necessarily or find commonality just really happily inhabited the same space.
How did you get into there? What was your journey into drag and working here?
My journey into drag, I used to do boylesque when I lived in Montreal, and so I would produce shows kind of around that, and that was when burlesque was the thing, and drag hadn't really had its new peak. And I actually don't know how much of a difference there is between burlesque and drag, really. So I started producing shows when I lived here, and I was booking circus people and cabaret people and drag acts, and the drag looked really fun, and I just wanted to give it a try.
How old was you then?
I started doing drag when I was 29.
Amazing.
Yeah.
What about you, Courtney? How old was you when you started?
19.
19.
It's the year 2000.
Have you been to this Working Men's Club that Crystal's talking about?
I know it. I feel like I've been there, but I don't think I've actually been there for a party. I think I've been there for like some filming something for a TV show, so I didn't actually have an authentic
time.
Yeah.
It was all for the cameras.
Kylie shot her golden album artwork in there.
Yeah. Oh,
it's like fully wood paneled. Everything is falling down. You look around, there's like a bajillion old props. It's like a very, very interesting looking space. And yeah, I've been running shows there since 2013. And it's still, like, we're still doing monthly shows there.
So if we brought it to Queertopia, you wouldn't change anything about it? You wouldn't dust it up, paint the wall, you keep it exactly the way it is?
I think it needs to stay as is. I think it needs to be a bit rough around the edges.
There's something to be said for that, isn't there?
Yeah.
You can't replicate the smell of, like, generations of beer in carpets. Yeah.
And then the occasional spilt bottle of poppers.
Yeah, exactly. You just know you're home when you smell that.
Okay, so as lovely as it is to imagine, you know, this incredible version of society, we want to also focus on reality now. And is there anything that we could be doing that would make life better for the queer community today?
Yes, definitely. There's so much. Political activism, I think, certainly. And I think that as queer people, we need to be extending a hand to the less marginalized and specifically the trans community at the moment who,
the more marginalized.
The more marginalized, exactly. We need to make sure that certainly as gay men, we're not pulling up the ladder behind ourselves. And there's just so much work to do with trans rights, and the government sadly is not doing enough. The Gender Recognition Act is something that needs a lot of reform, and being trans is still classified as a mental illness. So there's like lots to be done there, and
there was a big public consult with that recently, wasn't there?
And the government chose not to implement a lot of the recommendations. And it's funny because Theresa May actually had championed scrapping a lot of the really tough stuff in the GRA. And then a new government came in and changed. They didn't implement any of it. The key thing, I think, for trans people, as far from my understanding, I mean, I'm not of trans experience, so I don't want to speak for other people, but like self-identification and ending the pathologizing of transness. So you don't need to go to a psychiatrist to be diagnosed. I can't imagine having to be diagnosed for something that is just
it's like
innate.
If we had to go to a doctor to be diagnosed as gay.
Yeah. And you put it in those terms and no one would think that was okay. So,
I again am not of the trans experience, but I think I'm probably somewhat more moderate in my views where like I personally would appreciate talking to a psychiatrist about my gender identity if I were to go on that journey. And there have been points in my life where I did question my gender identity and sort of talked about it with friends. And I think having, if I were to have taken next steps, I think I would have appreciated, talking to a psychiatrist to sort of clarify, because there are many different ways of being trans as well. And I do understand that sometimes in our community, well, again, this is my personal experience, in the community that I was in, there was there was one way to be trans, and it was also 20 years ago, so things have come a long way since then. And so I just love now that there's so much more conversation about it, and I think we are heading in the right direction. And we're understanding that being trans isn't a binary that we thought it was. It used to be cis or trans, and if you were trans, you were, the goal was to be cis-presenting. And I think now we're accepting and understanding that trans beauty standards are their own and they shouldn't be compared to cis beauty standards. And I think, supporting trans people in our communities with our voices is what, it's paying it forward. It's what got us here today. We could have had all the pride
That's all
parades.
I think about, how privileged we are now, being a lesbian or a gay man. Like, we're like pretty much accepted now. It's like if you've got a problem with it, it's like, well, you're the problem.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And I think you've just got to imagine if we were in that position, and I'm not, the one to mainly talk about it. I've got a trans friend, but yeah, you've just got to imagine that was us, you know, because it was some time ago.
Yeah, exactly. I can remember when I was a kid that the debate was, you know, how acceptable is gayness, and you know, your identity was being debated in a public forum, and that's just shifted to a new group now. So we do know what it's like.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you for joining us today.
Crystal.
Thank you so much for having me. What a vision of beauty we've painted.
This new world, Queertopia, where children are taught sex education, where we have monuments erected to Madonna
and peaches playing on every street corner. Monthly showings of Showgirls.
Yeah. Okay. And monthly showings of Showgirls. I like that.
And no bananas.
Aww,
Thank you so much. No bananas.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you,
really
guys.
Appreciate it.
It was great.
Well, that was a delightful chat, wasn't it?
I really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
It was so fascinating as well. Like, even though I was joking about the banana a lot, but it's so true, isn't it? Like, we don't learn. Well, I never learned anything about sex ed, about being a lesbian. It was literally just one way.
And like, let's face it, even the opposite sex education that happens is pretty limited. Like, I think everybody, queer and straight, could do with more sex education and just more normalization around talk about sex, and getting rid of this idea that sex is shameful or sex is taboo or that our body should be shameful.
Yeah,
so important.
I've got a 12-year-old sister, so I think after we film this, I'm going to go and text her and say, what does your sex education go like? Because I'd be interested to know. I've never actually really thought about that.
I feel like at 12, sex education is less about sex and like the mechanics of sex, and perhaps more about like relationships and like being friends with boys and girls, and like I don't think they get into like the.
I feel like in year 7, when I was like 11, we were getting taught that.
Really?
Yeah.
Like about like sex,
well,
not the banana.
Not like the pleasure part of it, because that's like actually we never even got taught that. No. But just about like, don't do this because of this. Right. So I'll be fascinated to see if that's changed at all.
Yeah.
What do we think about Madonna on a swan? We've got to talk about that.
Yeah, I'm happy for that to happen. Peaches blaring out everywhere.
Yeah.
Love that. And the Bethnal Green Working Men's Club.
Well, I've never been there, but it sounds like an absolute ball. So if you two go, please text me.
I will.
And I'll come along.
All right. That sounds like a plan.
All right then. Sweet, it's a date.
Well, thank you for listening to this episode of Building Queertopia.
And as always, we want to hear from you. So email us at buildingqueertopia@bbc.co.uk.
Now, listen to the latest episode as soon as they drop by subscribing to the podcast over on BBC Sounds. Thanks for listening.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Hey guys, I'm Charlie XCX. Now we all have our ultimate playlist, right? The songs we love, the ones that bring back memories and represent the good times and of course get us through the not so good times. Join me for Charlie XCX's best song ever. My podcast where I'm going to interview some of my favourite people from the worlds of music, film, art and fashion, exploring the perfect tracks for life's ultimate playlist.
It's a record that makes everybody want to come to the dance floor. It's so joyous.
With all the highs, lows and fascinating stories behind every single selection.
Makes me break down and cry.
Yeah.
Because it's beautiful.
Charlie XCX's best song ever. Available now on BBC Sounds.
Hi, it's Rachel Fisher from the Hollywood Crime Scene podcast, and I'm here to talk to you about Shudder. Shudder is the ultimate streaming service for fans of horror, thrillers, and the supernatural. Shudder offers an unbeatable selection from Hollywood favorites like Halloween and cult classics like one of my personal favorites, Chopping Mall, to original series like Creepshow and The Last Drive-In with Joe Bob Briggs. Check out critically acclaimed new genre films that you won't find anywhere else. All uncut and commercial-free. If you're a horror fan like me or just looking for new content to stream, Shudder is a must-have subscription. Sign up and subscribe to Shudder